Imagine being a child with a dream, a wish that could change your life. Now imagine that wish being taken away, not because of anything you did, but because of something you couldn't control. What happens when the people meant to make dreams come true are forced to say no? It's heartbreaking, but for the workers of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, this is a reality they face more often than they'd like. As a Make-A-Wish coordinator, I've had the privilege of helping many children experience their wildest dreams, but sometimes, those dreams don't come true, whether it's because of family conflict, logistical issues, or celebrities who can't commit. Saying no is something that haunts every volunteer, and it's not just the kids who are affected. The emotional toll it takes on everyone involved is unimaginable. Story 1. The sadness of rejecting wishes. It's something no one wants to do, but as a Make-A-Wish worker, you sometimes have no choice but to say no. And when you do, it feels like you're crushing someone's dream. It's not about the child, it's never about them. It's about the adults who stand in the way, usually the non-custodial parents, who refuse to sign the necessary paperwork. It happens more often than I'd like to admit, and every time it's an overwhelming sense of defeat. But it's not just the paperwork. There are always family members, uncles, cousins, siblings, or parents who try to hijack the child's wish. You'd think the focus would always be on the child, but sometimes, the family dynamic can complicate it all. I remember one case, a classmate of mine who passed away not long after, had a wish to meet Sammy Sosa. The Make-A-Wish team set it up so the child could meet Sammy, get some autographs, and spend a little time with him. The excitement was palpable. This kid was obsessed with Sammy, his jerseys, his celebrations after home runs, and even the Pepsi commercials. Sammy was his idol, but when the day arrived, things went terribly wrong. Sammy Sosa showed up late, barely acknowledging the family when they greeted him. He signed a glove, and then walked away without any real interaction. The kid was devastated. I remember watching his parents trying to console him, but the tears kept flowing. The whole thing felt like a lost opportunity. The wish was ruined. Just when the family was about to leave, something unexpected happened. Corey Patterson, another baseball player, saw what was happening. Without hesitation, he walked over to the child, signed everything they had, and spent over half an hour chatting with them. Corey became the kid's new favorite player that day. And you know what? I think he lived maybe another year after that moment. At the child's funeral, there was a picture of Corey and the kid, and it was one of the most cherished memories for his family. That moment meant the world to that kid. And in a strange way, it meant something to me too. I wasn't there, but I knew how important it was to that family. And I'll always remember Corey Patterson for stepping up when Sammy Sosa could. Story 2. A wish to meet Taylor Swift. Sometimes wishes are just as they are heartfelt. I've seen kids request everything, from a shopping spree to meeting their idols. And one of the most memorable stories was a wish from a girl who wanted to meet Taylor Swift. It wasn't just any fan request. This little girl had stage 4 rhabdomyosarcoma. Her health had been deteriorating, but she had one hope left: to meet Taylor Swift in concert. However, things didn't work out, as we'd all hoped. Taylor wasn't on tour at that time, and with the girl's health condition, traveling to a live concert would have been too much. So the Make-A-Wish team sat down with the family, and we all tried to find a way to make this wish come true, at least in some form. In the end, the girl's parents, with the advice of the Make-A-Wish team, decided to reframe the wish and sent her to SeaWorld in Florida. She chose to swim with dolphins as her new wish. But when the big day came, there was a twist no one could have expected. The little girl was terrified of the dolphins. She wouldn't even go near them. In fact, she ended up spending most of her time on the shore, staring at the animals, too scared to get into the water. The Make-A-Wish staff, though, didn't give up on her. We took her and her family to Universal Studios instead, and she had a blast there. It wasn't Taylor Swift, but she still had an experience of a lifetime, one that she could carry with her forever. Years there, she was in remission, and was finally able to attend a Taylor Swift concert. And I can only imagine how much more meaningful that concert was compared to if she had seen Taylor during her first wish. That little girl learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes wishes don't come true the way you expect, but they still hold their own magic. Story 3. The shotgun that never was. It's amazing how wishes can reveal so much about a person's heart. When I was younger, I had the chance to make my own Make-A-Wish, and like any teenager, I had my idea. At first, I wanted to meet Harry Styles, and I thought that would be the most incredible wish ever. But when the coordinator told me that meeting him would take a whole year, with 15 other kids, just for a brief photo and a quick hello, I knew that wasn't the wish for me. So I switched it up, and decided to ask for a different kind of adventure. Instead of a celebrity, I asked for something that felt more personal, an experience that would really stick with me. I went to Australia for 10 days with my family, and it was incredible. We swam in the Great Barrier Reef, something I'd never imagined being able to do, especially considering my health at the time. But that wasn't the only wish experience I had. My sister also had a wish. Like me, she was pretty sick, and she had a rare opportunity. Make a wish too. She asked to meet Taylor Swift. So we ended up flying to Nebraska, where we stood in line with radio contest winners for a quick meet and greet. We got a picture with Taylor, and that was about it. Nothing extraordinary, but for my sister, it was a memory she'll always hold dear. My wish, on the other hand, turned out to be more adventurous. I asked to go for a rally driving day, and I'll never forget it. They picked up my family and me in a limo, and drove us for 2 hours to a place that would offer us an entire track to ourselves. I had the whole place to myself, driving rally cars and feeling the rush. The experience was unforgettable, and the fact that they took the time to take photos and even provide a meal for my family made it feel even more special. But that's not all. There was also the shotgun wish that never happened. I had wanted a shotgun because I was into clay shooting, but it got denied. Instead, I got the rally day, and I think I walked away with a greater appreciation for the adventure I had. It's funny, years later I'm still here alive and still thinking about that shotgun. Maybe one day I'll get it. But for now, I'll always have that unforgettable rally day. That was my make-a-wish, and I'll forever be grateful for it. Story 4. The Wish for a Treehouse. Not every wish involves grand adventures or celebrity meet and greets. Sometimes, it's the simple things that hold the most meaning. I remember one particular story about a little boy whose wish was to have a treehouse built in his front yard. You might think that's a relatively modest request, but unfortunately Make-A-Wish couldn't approve it. The logistics were just too difficult to manage. Coordinating a project like that, with contractors and building permits, was too much for the team to handle, especially when they had to focus on meeting the needs of so many other children. But that's where things took a turn. The boy's wish wasn't going to be denied. A couple of days later, I got word that a team of construction professionals had come together to build the treehouse anyway. It wasn't through Make-A-Wish, but through a group of volunteers who knew how much this meant to the little boy. A team of about 30 people mobilized in record time, and within a weekend, they had built a beautiful, functional treehouse that the boy could call his own. It was a place for him to escape, a sanctuary where he could forget about his illness, even for a moment. That treehouse became a symbol of community support, of people coming together to make a child's dream come true, despite the setbacks, despite the obstacles, and it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever witnessed. Story 5. The Gift of Giving Back. I've seen firsthand how impactful Make-A-Wish can be, not just for the kids who receive their wishes, but for the volunteers who help bring those wishes to life. After my own wish was granted, I wanted to give back, so I became a wish coordinator. It was one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done, to see the smiles on kids' faces when their wishes were finally realized. But there were times when, despite all efforts, wishes couldn't be granted. And those moments were just as heartbreaking. I remember one little boy whose wish was to get a puppy. Sadly, the Make-A-Wish Foundation doesn't grant wishes for live animals, so that one had to be turned down. It made sense, of course. Animals require a lot of care, and it's just not feasible to guarantee their well-being as part of a wish. But to see the disappointment on the boy's face when he found out, that stuck with me. It was one of those moments where you wish you could make the world a little bit kinder and a little bit easier for these kids. But there were also moments of pure joy, like the shopping spree for a boy who was confined to his room. He was given $7,000 to buy anything he wanted: video games, TVs, a lazy boy recliner, and the ultimate gaming net. It was a wish I'd coordinate, and seeing that kid light up as he imagined what he'd be able to buy was a gift in itself. Story 6. The Wish That Got Denied. Not all wishes come true, but that doesn't make them any less meaningful. I've worked with children whose wishes were denied for various reasons, sometimes because of health risks, sometimes due to the impossibility of the request. One of the hardest moments was when a little boy asked for something so innocent, yet so unattainable: a pup. He wanted a dog more than anything. You could see it in his eyes, but unfortunately Make-A-Wish doesn't grant wishes for live animals. The logistics of caring for a pet while also managing the child's health just aren't feasible. I remember sitting with his family as we explained why the wish couldn't be approved. It was heartbreaking. The family had to explain it to him, and seeing the sadness in his eyes still haunts me. Another wish that didn't come true involved a shotgun. A young recipient had asked for a shotgun because he was into clay shooting. It was one of those requests that, from a logistical and safety perspective, just wasn't feasible, so it was denied. But what made this story stand out was the rally driving day that came in its place. Instead of the shotgun, he got a day all to himself at a professional rally track, an experience that would change the course of his life. He spent hours behind the wheel living out a thrill that no one could predict it. And though it wasn't the wish he originally dreamed of, it ended up being far more meaningful than a shotgun. Sometimes wishes are denied, but the joy and experience that come from alternatives can often be even greater. Story 7. The little things that mean the most. There's a certain kind of magic that happens when you're a Make-A-Wish recipient. You get to step into a world where anything is possible, even if it's just for a brief moment. And while some wishes are grand, others are surprisingly simple yet equally powerful. I had a friend named John, who at the age of 12, had his own Make-A-Wish experience. He had been fighting leukemia and was fortunate enough to get a wish grant, but his request wasn't for a celebrity meet and greet, or a big trip. It was for something as ordinary as it was extraordinary. John wanted a private lunch at a local sushi bar. This was one of the most touching requests I've ever heard of. Instead of a big vacation or a celebrity, John just wanted a quiet meal with the food he loved most. He had dreamed of sushi, and it wasn't about fancy settings or exclusive experiences. It was about something as simple as sharing a meal with his family. The Make-A-Wish team went above and beyond, setting up a full sushi spread for him, with every roll and condiment imaginable. It wasn't grand, but it was everything he had wanted. I'll never forget the joy in his eyes as he looked over the spread, the way he was so excited to try every dish. It was an experience that meant everything to him. And for me, it reminded me that sometimes the smallest, simplest moments carry the most weight. Story 8. The selfless wish of a friend. Make-A-Wish grants so many different kinds of wishes, and it's always amazing to see how children's hopes can be shaped by their experiences. One story that stuck with me wasn't a wish for a vacation or a celebrity meet and greet. It was a wish that, in its own way, was a reflection of a child's selflessness. I didn't know the boy personally, but his story has always stayed with me. He was a Make-A-Wish recipient who had cancer and passed away just before graduation. His wish wasn't for himself. Instead, he used his Make-A-Wish funds to buy his best friend the best computer they could find. They went to a computer store together, and the boy asked his friend to pick out the best one on display. That was his wish, to make sure his best friend had something special, something he had always wanted. The boy passed away shortly after, but his wish to give, not receive, was truly remarkable. It spoke volumes about the depth of his heart. That selfless act of love has always stayed with me. I can't help but think about how the impact of a wish can go far beyond the moment itself. Later, the boy's story became a part of his community's memory. Imagine Dragons, a band the boy had met earlier, continued to honor him, dedicating their time and music to his memory. And every time I hear their song, I can't help but think of that incredible child who gave everything, even his last wish, to make someone else's life better. Story 9. The heartbreaking wish denial. Not every story ends in joy, and not every wish is granted. But the stories that don't go as planned often reveal the true emotional depth of Make-A-Wish. There's a story I'll never forget, and it's one that shows just how hard it can be when wishes are denied, especially when they come from a place of love. I had a friend who went through a difficult battle with cancer when we were kids. It was a challenging time, but through it all, he kept his spirits up. When the opportunity for a Make-A-Wish came up, he wasn't sure what to ask for. He had already been through so much, but in the end he decided he wanted something that seemed so simple, so meaningful to him. He wanted to meet George W. Bush, the president at the time. He loved history, especially US presidents. Meeting Bush was his ultimate wish. But when the request went through, the unthinkable happened. It was denied. The logistics were just impossible. The timing didn't work out. In the end, my friend's wish couldn't be fulfilled the way he dreamed. It was a crushing moment, and it took a toll on him. But Make-A-Wish didn't leave him hanging. Instead of meeting the president, they helped organize a trip to Washington, D.C. He and his family flew out, and while it wasn't the meeting with Bush he had hoped for, it was still a powerful experience. He got to explore the National Archives, the monuments, and immerse himself in the history he loved so much. It wasn't the wish he wanted, but it was still unforgettable. Sometimes the wishes we're given aren't the ones we expect, but they still manage to give us memories that last a lifetime. Story 10. A wish denied, but a life changed. I've heard so many powerful and emotional stories from the Make-A-Wish hescent, both the uplifting and the heartbreaking, but there's one that still stands out to me. One where the child didn't get the wish they asked for, yet in the end the experience still transformed their life in ways they never could have imagined. I remember a family I worked with, a little boy who had brain cancer. His wish was clear. He wanted to tour Europe. The family had talked about it for years, always dreaming of visiting the old world, but their finances made it impossible. This trip to Europe was everything to them, especially to the boy who had been through so much already. But the wish couldn't be granted the way they had hoped. His father wouldn't sign the necessary paperwork, and the trip was denied. The family was crushed. You can imagine how devastating that must have been for the boy. especially after everything he had been through. You could see the sadness in his eyes every time he thought about it. It was a hard moment for everyone involved. But as with so many Make-A-Wish stories, something incredible happened. Instead of the European trip, the family's second choice was to take a road trip across the United States in an RV, visiting places like the Badlands, Yellowstone, and the Rocky Mountains. The foundation pulled every string to make it possible. They gave the family a massive RV, set up a full itinerary, and helped make sure the entire trip was seamless. It wasn't Europe, but in a strange way, it ended up being even better. The boy and his family were able to bond in ways they never could have imagined, and they created memories that they cherish to this day. The trip was an unforgettable journey of connection, adventure, and healing, something they didn't expect, but desperately needed. The boy is now in remission, and looking back he sees that wish as a turning point in his life. It wasn't about where he went, it was about the experiences they shared together, the new places they explored, and the joy they felt as a family. It reminds me that sometimes even the denied wishes can lead to something even more profound. Story 11. The impact of Make-A-Wish. There's something uniquely powerful about being part of Make-A-Wish, something that stays with you long after the wish is granted. Whether you're the recipient or the volunteer, the experience changes you. And one of the most incredible parts of working with this organization is seeing the genuine impact it has on the lives of the children and their families. I remember one particular story where a child wanted to visit Disney World. At first glance, it seemed like a typical request, a cookie-cutter wish as we often called them. But when you're in the midst of it, you realize just how life-changing these seemingly simple experiences are. This child was battling terminal cancer, and the family had no idea how many more moments they would get to share together. When they arrived at Gipki's The World, the resort designed specifically for children from Make-A-Wish, everything changed. The volunteers treated them like royal. Every meal was a celebration, every moment filled with joy. The family didn't have to worry about the usual stresses of vacation. Everything was taken care of. The Disney staff went above and beyond, offering the child and their family VIP access to the parks, avoiding long lines, and making sure they had the most magical experience possible. It was more than just a trip to Disney World. It was a reprieve from the constant strain of illness and treatments. The family felt like they could breathe for once, and the child experienced moments of pure happiness. That trip wasn't just about the theme parks. It was about giving a family a chance to create memories that would last forever. And those memories were exactly what that child's parents held on to when the child passed away months later. The trip to Disney World, the joy they shared, and the memories they made became the foundation of their healing. Even though their child was gone, the magic of those moments remained with them. That's the power of Make-A-Wish. It's not about the wish itself. It's about what that wish does for the child and their family. It's about giving them a moment to forget about their pain, to just be a family, to just be happy. And in some cases, it's those memories that help them continue moving forward after loss. One of the most moving stories I remember was about a little girl who, after going through a difficult battle with cancer, had her wish granted. But instead of asking for something extravagant, she simply asked to go to Hawaii, to escape for a while and feel the warmth of the sun on her face, away from the sterile hospital rooms and constant treatments. The Make-A-Wish team worked their magic, arranging for Rare and her family to stay in a luxurious penthouse suite on Waikiki Beach. It wasn't just a beautiful setting, it was the opportunity to finally feel normal again. The family had been living in a constant state of fear and uncertainty. The illness had taken so much from them. But for those few days in Hawaii, they didn't have to think about treatments or hospital visits. They could just enjoy each other's company, laugh, and create precious memories. The experience was more than just a vacation. It was a healing experience. It gave them the chance to bond, to feel like a family again, and to make memories they would hold on to forever. The child's health would always be uncertain, but for a brief moment, they could pretend everything was okay. They didn't have to think about what was ahead. They could just, the warmth of the sun on that beach, the laughter of the child, and the way the family came together in that moment, was a gift they would treasure forever. It wasn't just about the destination. It was about what that trip gave them: peace, joy, and the opportunity to live in the moment. Even though her condition meant the family would eventually face more challenges, they had these memories, this life-changing experience, and those memories gave them the strength to keep going. Story 13. The Unforgettable Wish. For the Grand Canyon. There's a strange mixture of hope and heartache that comes with the Make-A-Wish experience. It's the hope of living life to the fullest, even in the face of a grim reality. I remember a story about a young boy who had leukemia, and like so many others was offered the chance to make a wish. At first, he was excited to ask for something amazing. He wanted to go to the Grand Canyon, a place he had always dreamed of visiting. It wasn't the flashiest wish, but to him it was everything. It was the place he wanted to see, one of the wonders of the world, something awe-inspiring that he could hold on to. But as often happens with these wishes, things didn't go as planned. His parents vetoed the Grand Canyon. They had their reasons, but it was a hard blow for the boy. Instead, the family ended up going to Disney World with the Give Kids the World program. It was a magical place, but in some ways, it felt like the wish he had really wanted was slipping away. Years later, I reflected on that boy's wish. Even though Disney World wasn't what he had envisioned, it was a beautiful experience that gave him memories with his family that would last forever. It isn't what he had dreamed, but in the end he came to understand the value of what he got. And sometimes the most important lesson of all is that it's not about the wish itself, but about the experiences, the joy and the memories created in the process. That Disney trip became a defining chapter in his life, one that he would carry with him long after his illness had passed. Story 14. The Power of the Wish Granters. As much as the children are the heart of Make-A-Wish, there are also the people who help make these wishes come to life. The Wish Granters. They are the unsung heroes behind the scenes, quietly working to ensure that each wish is fulfilled in the most magical and meaningful way possible. I had the privilege of working alongside a wish granter who had been volunteering with the organization for years. She had worked on dozens of wishes, from extravagant trips to simple experiences, and she always approached each one with the same dedication. But one story she shared with me stands out, one that illustrated the incredible lengths that wish granters are willing to go to in order to make a child's dream come true. There was a boy who, after surviving a long battle with rhabdomyosarcoma, had asked for a special playground built in his backyard. His parents had heard him dream of it for months. He wanted a place where he could play with his siblings and friends, somewhere that felt like his own world, a world that wasn't dictated by hospitals and treatments. The family's wish was complicated, though. The backyard was small, the budget was limited, and the logistics of getting the necessary permits were tough. Yet, the wish granter took it upon herself to find a way. She called construction companies, reached out to local volunteers, and with her tireless efforts, managed to gather a team to make it happen. It wasn't easy, but in the end she helped create the playground, turning a small backyard into an incredible space for a young boy to escape. It wasn't just about granting a wish, it was about transforming a family's life. That playground became a place of joy, laughter, and connection. And for the wish granter, seeing the boy's eyes light up when he first saw his dream come to life was the greatest reward. In the end, it's these moments, these quiet, behind-the-scenes actions, that make Make-A-Wish so much more than just an organization. It's about people going above and beyond to make the world a little brighter for a child facing unimaginable challenges. Story 15. The Wish for a Baseball Hero. There are some wishes that go beyond the excitement of the experience itself. One of the most powerful stories I've encountered was about a child's wish to meet his baseball hero, Mark McGwire. The Make-A-Wish team set everything up, hotel rooms, game tickets, and all the necessary arrangements for the family. It was supposed to be a dream come true. However, there was a catch. When they arrived at the stadium for batting practice, the family was told that McGwire would not be attending. The child was devastated. They had traveled all this way, and the reality of the situation hit hard. The disappointment was crushing for everyone involved. But here's where the story takes aim. While the family was reeling from the news, the Atlanta Braves were generous enough to step in. The team arranged a special experience for the boy, bringing him down to meet the entire Braves lineup, even letting him participate in batting practice. They went out of their way to make this child feel like a superstar, even if it wasn't what he had expected. As it turned out, the Braves not only provided an unforgettable experience, but they also ended up winning that game. The child's memories weren't defined by the absence of his idol, Mark McGwire, but by the incredible generosity of the team that stepped in. The kid went home with an entire set of new memories that far surpassed the original wish. It was a story of resilience, how sometimes the fist moments come from unexpected sources. Looking back, I can't help but feel that this story exemplifies everything that Make-A-Wish stands for. It's about turning disappointment into something beautiful, something that will leave a lasting impression, something that will remain with a child forever, regardless of what the original wish was. Story 16. The Wish That Became a Lifetime Memory. Not every wish ends with the same sense of magic. Some wishes become memories that define a child's entire journey, while others, like one I encountered, take a completely unexpected path, yet still bring a lifetime of meaning. I remember a young girl who had been battling a terminal illness. She had always dreamed of meeting Taylor Swift, one of her idols, but unfortunately at the time, Taylor wasn't on tour, so the Make-A-Wish team worked with her to create an alternative, and the little girl ended up choosing a trip to Universal Studios and swimming with dolphins as her wish. When the day finally came, she was excited but also a bit nervous. The thought of interacting with dolphins was both exhilarating and daunting for her. But once they got to the water, an unexpected happened. She was terrified. The dolphins, which were supposed to be part of her dream, ended up being the very thing she couldn't bring herself to approach. She refused to get in the water, leaving her family feeling disappointed, unsure of how to make the most of the day. It could have been a sad ending, but the Make-A-Wish team refused to let it end that way. Instead of letting the experience be defined by fear, they made sure the rest of the trip was magic. They took her family to Universal Studios, where she had the chance to enjoy the park, meet new characters, and just be a kid, free from the weight of her illness. Though the dolphins weren't part of the wish she envisioned, the rest of the experience was enough to leave her with a lifetime memory. When I spoke to her years later, she reflected on that trip with joy and appreciation. The dolphins had not been the highlight of her wish, but the time with her family, the moments of laughter, and the sense of normalcy was everything she needed. Sometimes wishes are granted in ways we don't expect, but in the end, those experiences, unexpected as they might be, leave us with a sense of gratitude, joy, and memories that continue to shape our lives. Story 17. The True Meaning of a Wish. There's one story that really encapsulates the true essence of what Make-A-Wish is all about. It's not about lavish experiences or extravagant gifts, but about the moments that truly make a difference in a family's life. A story that proves wishes don't have to be monumental to be life-changing. I worked with a boy who had always wanted a simple trip to Disney World. His request wasn't grand, but to him, it was the ultimate dream. The family had been struggling for years, balancing the constant uncertainty of his health with the pressures of day-to-day life. They were living in a constant state of limbo, unsure of what each day would bring. But this trip to Disney was something they could hold on to, a symbol of hope in an uncertain world. The Make-A-Wish Foundation made it happen. The family was flown to Florida, and they stayed at the Give Kids the World Resort. While the wish was initially about visiting Disney World, it quickly became about so much more than just a trip. It was about experiencing joy as a family, laughing together, and creating memories that would last forever. The little boy had the chance to forget about his illness, even for just a few days, and just enjoy being a kid. The entire experience became an escape for them, one that they desperately needed. The family had a chance to feel normal again, something that felt impossible with the constant hospital visits and medical appointments. The trip gave them a moment of relief, an opportunity to live in the moment, away from the pain and fear that had defined so much of their lives. What really stuck with me about this family was how much the wish meant to them. It wasn't the extravagant rides or the meet and greets with princesses. It was the time they spent together, the moments they shared, and the chance to forget about the world outside, even if only for a few days. When I heard the boy's mom speak about it afterward, she said something that still sticks with me. That trip was the only time we felt like we could truly breathe. Sometimes the most profound wishes aren't the ones that cost the most, or involve the biggest celebrities. Sometimes the greatest gift is simply peace, joy, and togetherness. And that's exactly what Make-A-Wish gave this family, a precious gift they will carry with them forever. Story 18. The Wish for a Treehouse. The Power of Community. Some wishes aren't about grand trips or celebrity encounters. Instead, they reflect the simple joys of childhood. A child once wished for a treehouse in his backyard. It seemed like a modest wish, something a lot of kids dream of. But as always happens with Make-A-Wish, even the simplest requests come with challenges. The organization couldn't fulfill this particular wish right away. Building a treehouse involves so much coordination, materials, skilled workers, permit. It would take a lot of time and effort, and it wasn't something Make-A-Wish could easily manage in the usual time frame. This left the child whose wish was so simple yet so deeply meaningful in a tough spot. But here's where the true magic of community came into play. Instead of giving up, the Make-A-Wish team reached out to local volunteers, including construction workers, who were eager to step in. A few days later, over 30 volunteers came together to build the treehouse for the boy. They worked tirelessly, putting in hours of labor to make the child's dream come true. What began as an impossible task became a testament to what happens when people come together for a cause greater than themselves. A child's wish was not just granted. It was fulfilled through the love and support of a community that wanted to make a difference in his life. The boy's reaction when he first saw the completed treehouse was priceless. It wasn't just a structure. It was a symbol of hope, joy, and the power of people who care. He was able to play in it, escape from the confines of his illness, and find comfort in a space built just for him. His wish might have seemed simple, but the impact it had was profound. The tea house was a reminder that sometimes the greatest gifts are the ones that come from the heart. That tree house wasn't just made of wood. It was made of love, community, and selflessness. And for that little boy, it became a place where memories would be made, a place that would help him heal. Story 19. The Selfless Wish. Giving back to a friend. Not all wishes are for the recipient's own benefit. Some children wish for things that will make others happy, even if it means they won't get something for themselves. One of the most touching stories I've encountered was about a young boy who, despite his own battle with terminal illness, chose to use his make-a-wish to give a gift to someone else. This boy's wish was to buy his best friend the best computer he could find. It wasn't a wish to go on a trip or meet a celebrity. He wanted to use the funds for his wish to give his friend something meaningful. He and his friend went to a computer store together, and the boy picked out the most expensive, most powerful computer he could afford with his make-a-wish donation money. It was a gesture of pure selflessness, a moment that showed just how deep this child's heart was. Unfortunately, the boy passed away shortly after fulfilling his wish. But what remained was the memory of his act of kindness, the bond he shared with his friend, and the knowledge that his wish made a lasting impact on someone he cared about deeply. Years later, the boy's story didn't end with his death. He became part of a larger community memory, especially when the boy's family told the story of his wish. It spread beyond his circle, touching the hearts of all who heard it. And in a truly beautiful turn of events, the band Imagine Dragons, whom the boy had met earlier, dedicated their time and performances to him. It was their way of remembering a young soul who had given everything, even his wish, to someone else. This boy's wish wasn't about fame, fortune, or even something for himself. It was about giving, and in that giving he taught everyone around him a powerful lesson in love, generosity, and friendship. Story 20. The impact of a wish granter's dedication. Sometimes the most extraordinary stories come from the people behind the scenes, the wish granters. These are the individuals who make the dreams of children battling life-threatening illnesses come true. They're the ones who work tirelessly to turn wishes into reality, often going above and beyond to ensure that the child's experience is as magical as it can possibly be. One story that stands out involves a wish granter I worked closely with. She was an extraordinary person, always ready to go the extra mile for the kids. One particular wish involved a boy who had a dream of meeting a celebrity, and not just any celebrity, but someone very difficult to arrange a meeting with. This wish required a lot of legwork, communication, and planning, and there were a lot of obstacles along the way. But the wish granter refused to give up. She called everyone she could, went through all the necessary channels, and coordinated with multiple teams to make it happen. And in the end, she succeeded. Not only did the boy get to meet his hero, but he also spent time with the celebrity in a way that was both personal and memorable. The boy was overwhelmed with joy, and it was a moment that changed his life. What made this wish so special wasn't just the celebrity meeting. It was the way the wish granter worked tirelessly to make the impossible possible. She didn't just see her role as fulfilling a wish, she saw it as an opportunity to make a child's dreams come true in the most meaningful way possible. It was her dedication, her passion, and her belief in the power of these moments that made the difference. Through her efforts, the boy's life was changed forever, but so was the life of the wish granter. Every time she saw the boy's smile, every time she heard his story, she was reminded of why she did what she did. It wasn't about the fame or recognition. It was about making a real difference in someone's life. And in the process, she created a memory that would live on, not just for the boy but for everyone involved. Story 21. The wish denied, but a new hope. Not every wish is granted, and some children have to accept that the dream they've held onto might not come true. It's one of the hardest parts of being involved in Make-A-Wish, having to tell a child that their wish can't be granted. Sometimes the reasons are logistical, sometimes health-related, or sometimes there are just certain limitations we can't overcome. I remember a story where a young boy with cancer had a wish to meet a famous athlete. He had followed this athlete's career for years and wanted to spend time with him, to talk about his experiences and get an autograph. It was a simple wish, something that seemed achievable at first, but the reality of scheduling, the athlete's availability, and the sheer logistics of arranging the fete made it nearly impossible. After a lot of effort, we had to deny the wish. The athlete simply couldn't commit to meeting him, despite the team's best efforts to make it happen. The boy was devastated. It was a tough conversation, and you could see the heartbreak in his eyes, but we didn't want to give up. Instead of focusing on the denied wish, we took a step back and worked together with the family to find something just as special, just as meaningful. We found another opportunity, an experience that still captured the boy's love for sports, but in a new way. Instead of meeting the athlete, the boy got to attend a VIP experience at a major sporting event, where he had the chance to see his favorite players up close and even interact with them before the game. It wasn't the meet and greet he had originally imagined, but it was a magical experience that still gave him that feeling of connection to the world he loved. In the end, the boy walked away with a heart full of joy, and the family learned that sometimes the best wishes are the ones we didn't expect. It wasn't the original wish he dreamed of, but it still brought him the same sense of wonder and joy. That experience became a treasured memory, and in many ways it meant more, because it came after learning how to cope with disappointment. Sometimes denied wishes lead to even better memories, and the most powerful moments come when we find new hope after loss. Story 22. The Make-A-Wish that created a legacy. Some wishes don't just impact the child, they affect the entire community around them. One story I always remember was about a young girl whose wish was to create a community garden. She had been battling a serious illness for most of her young life, and she had a deep love for nature. She dreamed of having a space where people could come together to grow plants, flowers, and vegetables. She wanted to build something that would last far beyond her own time. The Make-A-Wish team took her wish seriously, and while the logistics were complicated, we all came together to make it happen. Local businesses donated materials, gardeners volunteered their time, and soon the project began to take shape. What started as a simple wish for a garden quickly transformed into something much more: a space for healing, for connection, and for community. The garden was completed in just a few months, and when it was finally opened, it wasn't just a garden, it was a symbol of the girl's strength and vision. The community rallied around it, and it became a place for others who were struggling with illness, loss, or hardship. The garden wasn't just her wish, it became a legacy that would continue to grow long after she was gone. Sadly, the girl passed away a few months later, but the garden she had dreamed of lived on. It became a place where people could honor her memory and experience the peace she had felt in nature. Her wish had not only transformed her life, but also touched the hearts of everyone involved. It was a reminder of the power of a wish, not just for a single child, but for an entire community. That garden continues to thrive today, and whenever I visit, I think of her, the girl whose wish became something much larger than any of us could have imagined. Story 23. The power of a wish granter's support. One of the most impactful elements of Make-A-Wish is the relationship between the child and the wish granters. They're the ones who sit down with the children, listen to their dreams, and work tirelessly to bring those dreams to life. But the bond they form isn't just professional, it's personal, and often it lasts far beyond the wish being granted. I remember a particular wish granter who had worked with a young boy who had been struggling with cancer for several years. This boy had endured so many treatments, so many hospital stays, that he barely remembered a time when he wasn't sick. His one wish was to meet his favorite superhero, someone he had idolized for years. But when the team began to reach out to arrange the meeting, they encountered obstacles. The actor who played the superhero was not available, and the logistics seemed impossible. The boy's dream seemed to be slipping away. But the wish granter didn't give up. She kept pushing, kept negotiating, and finally she was able to bring a different kind of magic into the boy's life. Instead of a face-to-face meeting with the actor, the boy received a personalized message from his superhero, complete with a special video, handwritten notes, and even a surprise visit from someone else who had worked on the movie. While it wasn't the perfect, direct meeting, it still left the boy feeling overjoyed. The most remarkable part of this story, though, wasn't just the wish, it was the way the wish granter stayed by the family's side through every step of the process. She wasn't just there to fulfill a wish, she was there to support them, to be a constant during the most challenging time in their lives. The bond she built with the boy's family became a lasting one. When the boy eventually passed away, his family reached out to her, grateful for her compassion and commitment to making his wish as magical as it could be. It was a reminder that sometimes the most important part of the Make-A-Wish process isn't the wish itself, but the people who are there to support and guide families through one of the most difficult journeys they'll ever face. Story 24. A simple wish, a life-changing moment. Sometimes the simplest wishes end up having the most profound impact. A wish doesn't always need to be extravagant to change a life. One story that stays with me is about a young boy who, when given the chance to make a wish, asked for something that seemed almost too ordinary: a shopping spree. This wasn't just any shopping spree, though. The boy came from a family that had struggled financially for years. He had never experienced the joy of simply picking out what he wanted without worrying about the price tag. His wish was straightforward. He wanted to go to a store and buy whatever he wanted. The Make-A-Wish team made it happen. The boy and his family were given $7,000 to spend, and they set off for a shopping spree that would change everything for them. This wasn't about materialism or excess. It was about the experience of being able to enjoy something without the constant burden of financial worry. The boy walked through the aisles, overwhelmed with the freedom to pick out anything he wanted. What struck me most about this wish wasn't just the amount of money or the items he bought. It was the joy on his face when he picked out a simple pair of new glasses, something he had needed for a long time but couldn't afford. It was a small purchase, but it meant so much to him. The day wasn't about the expensive toys or the flashy items. It was about the simple joy of being able to choose, to feel like a kid who could indulge without guilt or limitation. For that brief moment, he felt like he had control over his life, and that sense of empowerment was priceless. This wish taught me that sometimes the most life-changing moments come from the smallest of acts, the things we often take for granted. That day, that shopping spree, gave this young boy a sense of normalcy and joy that he would carry with him forever. And for his family, it was a moment of relief, of feeling like their struggles were no longer at the forefront of their minds, if only for a little while. Story 25. The lasting memory of a wish. Sometimes, a wish isn't just a moment of happiness, it becomes a lasting memory that shapes the rest of a child's life. One of the most powerful stories I've heard was about a young boy whose wish was to meet the band Imagine Dragons. The boy had been battling cancer for most of his young life, and his love for the band gave him something to hold on to during his toughest moments. The Make-A-Wish team worked hard to make this wish a reality. We reached out to the band's management, and after a lot of planning and coordination, we were able to arrange for the boy to meet the band and watch them perform live. It wasn't just about a quick hello, it was a full, VIP experience that included backstage access, a personal meet and greet, and a private concert just for him. When the boy finally met the band, it was a moment of pure magic. His face lit up with joy, and he couldn't believe he was standing there with the band he had listened to for years. He spent time talking with them, taking pictures, and even chatting about his favorite songs. It was an experience he would never forget. But the story didn't end there. A few months later, when the boy passed away, Imagine Dragons dedicated their music to him in a tribute concert. They didn't just meet him, they became part of his legacy, honoring his strength and spirit long after his death. What made this wish so powerful wasn't just the meeting itself, it was the lasting impact it had on the boy, his family, and even the band. His wish had connected him to something bigger than himself, and the memories of that day continued to provide comfort long after he was gone. It's a reminder that sometimes a wish can become so much more than just an experience. It becomes a legacy, a story that lives on in the hearts of everyone who was touched. Story 26. The Wish for a Puppy. A Heartfelt Denial. Sometimes, the hardest part of being involved with Make-A-Wish is having to say no to a child's request. As much as we strive to make every wish come true, there are certain things that simply can't be granted, no matter how much we wish it were different. I remember a story about a little boy who asked for something that seemed like the simplest of wishes, a puppy. He had been through so much in his young life, battling illness day after day, and all he wanted was a companion, a furry friend who would bring him comfort. It wasn't a grand wish. It wasn't something extravagant, but due to the nature of the request, and the challenges of managing live animals for a child in a hospital setting, Make-A-Wish simply couldn't fulfill the wish. It was a tough conversation to have, explaining why a puppy couldn't be granted. His little face fell, and I could see the sadness in his eyes. It broke my heart to see that, but we didn't give up on him. Instead, we focused on finding a creative solution, something that would still bring him joy, even if it wasn't a puppy. In the end, we arranged for the boy to get a custom-built robotic dog, a pet that could provide him with the companionship and comfort he was looking for, without the logistical challenges of a live animal. It wasn't the same as a real puppy, but it was the closest we could offer, and it brought a smile to his face when he saw it for the first time. This story stayed with me because sometimes, even when wishes don't turn out exactly as expected, there's still hope. Still magic to be found in the unexpected. The robotic dog became more than just a replacement. It became a source of comfort, a symbol of the compassion that went into trying to make his dream come true. Even though he didn't get the puppy he had asked for, the experience proved that a wish doesn't always have to be about getting exactly what you wanted. It's about finding the joy in what's possible. Story 27. The Wish for the Grand Canyon. A different journey. Some wishes don't go as expected, but sometimes the journey they take you on is even more meaningful. I remember a boy who, after being diagnosed with leukemia, had his own Make-A-Wish experience. When he was asked what his greatest wish was, without hesitation, he said he wanted to visit the Grand Canyon. It wasn't a flashy request, just a simple desire to see one of the world's natural wonders, dream that seemed perfectly achievable. But life, as it often does, threw in a due to his medical condition, the trip to the Grand Canyon was no longer safe. His parents vetoed the idea, not because they didn't want him to have the experience, but because they felt it was too risky given his fragile health. This was a tough moment, one that felt like a letdown to everyone involved. The Grand Canyon was such a simple wish, yet it was slipping away. But rather than accepting defeat, the Make-A-Wish team worked hard to find an alternative that could still make the boy feel like he was living his dream. Instead of heading to the Grand Canyon, The boy's family was given a Disney World trip through the Give Kids the World program. The boy was initially disappointed, but what happened next changed everything. The family had such a magical experience in Florida that it far exceeded their expectations. For a child who had spent so much of his life in hospitals and dealing with pain, Disney World offered him an escape, an opportunity to simply be a child again. The boy's entire family embraced the trip, enjoying time together without the looming stress of illness and treatments. They even had the chance to visit the Magic Kingdom, a place that brought joy to the boy's heart in a way the Grand Canyon never could. And while it wasn't the wish he originally imagined, that trip became a beautiful chapter in their lives, one that filled their hearts with joy and gave them memories to cherish forever. It was a reminder that sometimes the journey, even when it takes unexpected turns, ends up being more valuable than the destination. Story 28. The Wish Denied. The Power of a Family's Support. The hardest moments aren't always the ones where a child's wish is fulfilled. They're often the ones where a wish has to be denied. I remember a story about a child whose wish was to go to Europe, something he had dreamed about for years. His parents had planned the trip, and it seemed like the perfect wish, an opportunity to experience new places and make memories together. But as things often go, a complication arose. The child's father wouldn't allow the boy to get a passport, even though his health was at a critical point and the chance to travel was rapidly slipping away. His father's refusal was based on a belief that the trip was too risky, and so despite the child's condition, the wish was denied. This story was heartbreaking. The boy had been granted the chance to experience something that many of us take for granted, an adventure outside of the world of doctors and hospitals, but that dream was taken away by something beyond his control. And as much as Make-A-Wish tried to advocate for him, it wasn't enough to change the father's mind. But even in the face of this, the boy's second wish became something beautiful. Rather than letting the original wish slip into disappointment, the family came together and decided to make the RV trip to the Badlands, Yellowstone and the Rocky Mountains happen. The Make-A-Wish Foundation quickly stepped in and arranged for everything. A fully equipped RV, an itinerary and all the logistical support they needed. It wasn't Europe, but it was still an incredible journey. The boy and his family were able to explore the stunning natural beauty of the U.S., creating new memories that would last a lifetime. Even though the first wish was denied, the second one became a treasured experience, a chance to bond, to heal and to experience the world in a new way. In the end, that wish became a reminder that while we may not always get exactly what we want, the love and support of family can turn any experience into something extraordinary. Sometimes the most valuable memories come from the paths we take when the eternal plan falls apart. Story 29. The Emotional Power of a Wish Granter's Impact. The wish granters in Make-A-Wish don't just grant wishes. They form deep emotional bonds with the children and families they work with. These connections go far beyond simply fulfilling a request. I'll never forget one story of a young boy whose health had been deteriorating for months, and who had just one wish: to meet his favorite singer. At first, everything seemed like it was falling into place. The singer's team was on board, and all the logistics were being arranged. But just as we were nearing the date, the singer had to cancel. It was a crushing blow to the boy, who had already gone through so much. His wish was slipping away, and his hope began to fade. The wish granter in charge of this case didn't give up, though. She knew how important this moment was to the boy, and instead of just accepting the cancellation, she reached out to other artists, trying to find a way to make this wish come true. After a lot of coordination, they arranged for a personalized video message from the singer, as well as a private meet and greet with someone from the music industry who the boy greatly admired. It wasn't the face-to-face interaction he had dreamed of, but it was enough. It was a moment of pure joy for the boy, a reminder that even when things don't go as planned, there is always a way to create magic. What truly stood out to me was the wish granter's role. She had gone above and beyond, putting her heart and soul into making this wish come true for a child who needed it so desperately. Her efforts didn't just fulfill a wish, they gave the boy a lifeline, something to hold on to during the toughest time of his life. The support of a wish granter is sometimes what makes the real difference, not the wish itself, but the care, dedication, and belief that the child's happiness matters deeply. And when the boy smiled, holding that signed CD from his favorite singer, I realized that Make-A-Wish isn't just about giving children the ultimate wish, it's about giving them hope, a sense of worth, and the knowledge that people truly care about their happiness. Story 30. The Healing Power of a Wish. There's a certain magic that happens when a child gets their Make-A-Wish granted. It's not just about the experience, it's about what happens in their hearts. I remember a story about a little girl who had been battling stage 4 cancer. She had endured years of treatments, hospital visits, and pain, but one thing kept her going: her wish to meet Taylor Swift. Her parents were hopeful, but realistic. They knew that Taylor wasn't on tour at the time, and that their daughter's health was fragile. Still, they decided to go for it. When the Make-A-Wish team heard about the request, we immediately began working on how we could make it happen. Unfortunately, Taylor wasn't available, and her health wasn't stable enough to wait for an opportunity. This could have been a devastating blow to the little girl, but instead, we shifted gears. Her wish was reimagined, and instead of a celebrity meeting, we focused on creating an experience that was equally as magical. The girl's family was flown to Universal Studios, and she was given the chance to swim with dolphins, a wish she didn't even know she had. When they arrived in Florida, the little girl was initially nervous, uncertain about being so close to the water and these incredible creatures. But something amazing happened. She overcame her fear. She swam with the dolphins, laughed with her family, and felt a sense of freedom she hadn't felt in a long time. It was a transformative moment. The joy and peace on her face as she interacted with the dolphins were unlike anything her family had seen in months. It wasn't the Taylor Swift meet and greet she had dreamed of, but the experience brought her something even more precious: healing, joy, and the chance to simply be a child again. In that brief moment, the girl wasn't a cancer patient. She was just a kid swimming with dolphins, laughing and playing like any other child. This wish didn't just change the little girl, it changed her family as well. They saw their daughter not just surviving, but truly living, even if just for a moment. That trip became more than a wish. It became a symbol of the strength and resilience they had all shown through their trials. Story 31. The Legacy of a Wish Granter. In the world of Make-A-Wish, there are some people whose impact reaches far beyond the children they directly serve. One such person was a wish granter who had spent years working with families in need. She had helped make hundreds of wishes come true, but one child's wish changed her life forever. This little boy had been diagnosed with leukemia and had spent much of his life in hospitals. His wish was simple: to visit the Grand Canyon. He had always dreamed of seeing the desert landscape, the rocks, and the vast open skies. His doctors approved the wish, and the family began making plans. But there was a complication. His health was declining fast, and traveling to the Grand Canyon might not be possible. Instead of letting the child's wish fall by the wayside, the wish granter took action. She didn't give up on the boy's dream, even when it seemed out of reach. She found a way to bring the Grand Canyon to him. She coordinated a virtual tour, where the child could experience the beauty of the canyon from his hospital room. The boy's face lit up as he saw the vast landscape on a large screen, and for a few hours he could forget about his illness. The wish granter's dedication was a reminder of the powerful role these volunteers play in making dreams come true. They don't just help grant wishes, they become part of the family's lives, offering hope and connection when everything else seems uncertain. This boy's wish may not have been fulfilled in the way anyone imagined, but in the end, it gave him something much more lasting than just a trip. It gave him a moment of peace and joy in the face of overwhelming adversity. Story 32. A simple wish for a big adventure. Some children have wishes that are grand, while others simply wish for small personal experiences. One of the most moving stories I've come across is about a young girl who didn't want a trip or a celebrity encounter. She simply wanted to go shopping. This wasn't just any shopping spree. The little girl came from a family that had struggled for years with financial hardship. She had never had the opportunity to pick out her own clothes without thinking about the price tag. Her Make-A-Wish request was simple. She wanted to go to a store, pick out anything she wanted, and feel like a regular kid. The Make-A-Wish team made it happen. The girl and her family were given a $5,000 gift card to spend, and the family took a trip to a local mall. What was so moving about this wish was how it transformed the experience for the family. This wasn't just about buying clothes, it was about giving the child an experience that made her feel normal, something that had been denied to her for so long. She bought a new pair of shoes, a cute dress, and even some toys. But the most meaningful part of the day was when she picked out a special gift for her mother. She bought a necklace for her mom, as a way to say thank you for always being there, no matter what. For this little girl, the day was life-changing. It wasn't just about the shopping spree, it was about the sense of empowerment, the joy of having the freedom to choose, and the bonding experience with her family. She walked away feeling like she had been given something precious, not just material items, but a feeling of normalcy and a sense of belonging. Story 33. A father's tribute to his son's wish. One of the most heart-wrenching stories I've heard was about a young boy whose wish was to meet his favorite baseball player, but it was his father's journey that made it unforgettable. The boy, who was battling terminal cancer, had always dreamed of meeting Mark McGwire, his baseball idol. His family had tried to make this dream come true before, but the circumstances never lined up. When Make-A-Wish was asked to step in, the team immediately reached out to McGuire's people to arrange the meeting. Unfortunately, McGwire declined the request. It wasn't that he didn't care, it was just that his schedule couldn't accommodate the meeting. For the boy and his father, this was a crushing blow. But instead of giving up, the Make-A-Wish team rallied together and figured another way to grant the wish. Rather than a meeting with McGuire himself, they arranged for the boy to meet the entire Atlanta Braves team, to watch batting practice from the dugout, and to even participate in a private meet and greet with the players. The boy got to meet his new baseball heroes, including some of the players who would go on to win the World Series that year. What's powerful about this story isn't just the meeting, it's the legacy it left behind. The boy passed away shortly after his trip, but at his funeral, his family displayed the picture of him with the Braves, along with other cherished mementos from the trip. His father later shared that the moment had given his son something he would carry with him forever. A memory of joy, an experience that would help him face his battle with courage. Even though the wish wasn't exactly what they'd hoped for, the experience left an indelible mark on their heart. For the father, it was a tribute to his son's resilience and the healing power of a simple wish granted. I remember one wish that I worked on that truly exemplified this bond. It was for a young girl who had been diagnosed with rhabdomyosarcoma, and her wish was to meet her favorite celebrity. We worked for weeks, coordinating everything, and finally the day of the meeting arrived. But just hours before the meeting, the celebrity had to cancel due to unforeseen circumstances. The girl was devastated, but what happened next changed everything. The wish granter didn't stop there. She took it upon herself to make sure the girl still had an experience that would leave her with lasting memories. The wish granter arranged a personalized video message from the celebrity, but that wasn't all. The granter also coordinated a surprise meeting with a local celebrity, who was also a big fan of the same actress. The girl's face lit up when she met their new idol, and despite the initial disappointment, the day turned into something extraordinary. Through all of this, the bond between the wish granter and the girl's family only grew stronger. The granter didn't just grant a wish, she created a moment of joy and comfort when the family needed it most. It was a reminder that the power of a wish is not just in the wish itself, but in the care and compassion that go into making it come true. Story 35. The Journey of a Wishful. Some wishes are granted under circumstances that no one could ever predict. One of the most emotional wishes I've ever witnessed involved a young girl whose dream was to go to Disneyland. She had been battling a rare form of leukemia, and for years all she'd known was pain and hospital stays. Her family had always talked about going to Disneyland, but finances and health never allowed for it. When the Make-A-Wish team got involved, the girl's dream began to feel like a reality, but it was far from easy. Her condition was worsening, and her doctors weren't sure if she would be healthy enough to travel. The family remained hopeful, but there was always that fear that something might go wrong at the last minute. After weeks of coordination, the team made it happen. The girl and her family were flown to California, and they stayed at the Give Kids the World Village, a place designed specifically for families with children who have life-threatening illnesses. The resort was full of smiles, laughter, and love, and for the first time in years, the girl and her family were able to put aside the reality of her illness and just enjoy being together. For that week, the girl was free. She walked through the gates of Disneyland, eyes wide with wonder. She met princesses, rode the rides, and most importantly, created memories that her family would hold on to forever. For her parents, it wasn't just about the wish, it was about seeing their daughter truly happy again, smiling in a way that they hadn't seen in months. Unfortunately, the girl passed away shortly after the trip, but her family spoke of the Disneyland experience at her memorial, saying it was the one time she truly got to live without the weight of her illness. It was the memory they would carry with them forever. This wish wasn't just about the trip, it was about giving a family the chance to live, laugh, and love together, one last time. And though the girl is gone, her wish is a lasting tribute to the power of Make-A-Wish and the difference it can make in the lives of those who need it most. Story 36. The Wish That Couldn't Be. A father's heartfelt reflection. One of the toughest aspects of being involved in Make-A-Wish is hearing about the wishes that can't be granted. There are moments when you have to explain to a child that what they've asked for, due to various reasons, just can't happen. It's never easy to face, especially when the child's wish is something so simple and heartfelt. I remember a father who shared the story of his son's wish. His son, who had brain cancer, had asked to meet the President of the United States. This was a wish that at first seemed entirely possible, especially with the level of political connections and resources that Make-A-Wish has. But unfortunately, after many attempts, the request was denied. The president's schedule couldn't accommodate the boy, and it became clear that the wish would not be fulfilled in the way the boy had hoped. When the father spoke about this moment, I could hear the heartbreak in his voice. It wasn't about the president. It was about giving his son that moment of magic, something to hold on to when everything else felt out of control. The father and son had both been let down, and the dad felt like they had failed him. But despite the disappointment, the father went on to share that they eventually chose a different wish, a trip to Washington, D.C. Instead of meeting the president, they toured the monuments, visited the Smithsonian, and explored the historical sites the boy had always dreamed of seeing. While it wasn't the presidential meeting, it was still an experience that gave them something priceless: time together, away from the hospital and the treatments. The father's reflection on this experience was powerful. He said that even though the wish wasn't what they'd imagined, it was still an opportunity to create lasting memories in a difficult time. Sometimes, the wishes that don't happen lead to moments that matter just as much, if not more. It was a reminder that it's not about the wish itself, but about the love and the memories you create along the way. After receiving a wish, some children and families decide to give back to others who are going through similar struggles. It's a beautiful thing to witness. I remember a family who had experienced the full magic of Make-A-Wish. Their son, a young boy who had undergone multiple surgeries and treatments, had a wish granted to go to Disney World. It was a life-changing experience for the entire family, offering them a break from the reality of their son's illness. The trip brought them joy, hope, and the chance to create beautiful memories that they would carry with them forever. But the family's story didn't end there. Years later, after their son's condition improved, they decided to become Make-A-Wish volunteers. They wanted to give back to the organization that had done so much for them. They joined a team of wish granters and spent their time helping make the wishes of other children come true. Their motivation wasn't just about the experience. They had lived it. They knew firsthand what a wish could do for a child and their family. It was their way of passing on the gift they had received, and it was something they continued to do with pride and love. This story is a reminder that the Make-A-Wish Foundation doesn't just impact the children who receive the wishes. It touches everyone involved, creating a ripple effect of kindness, compassion, and giving that lasts long after the wish is granted.